pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another In Other Words, which is an occasional series where I talk about vocabulary, idioms, interesting expressions, and sometimes even grammatical patterns that I encounter in my reading. And I hasten to add, for those of you that are new, that I do not hold myself out to be an expert in these matters. I just like learning new stuff about language and do lots of deep dives on Google. I am an English teacher and I do have a master's degree in English, but that doesn't really qualify me as much as the links to which I go down rabbit holes on Google. So I have a bunch of interesting phrases and whatnot for you, so let's get started. The first few are from this novel, this African-American novel, The Known World by Edward P. Jones, which I read and which completely obliterated me earlier this year. It's now my third most favorite novel of all time, and some good vocabulary from the American South, or certainly American English, perhaps historical, perhaps regional, although I didn't find any evidence of that in my research. But the first one is chiffonier, and I had never heard it. It's obviously a French word. It has one meaning in British English and another in American English. So in British English, it's a low cupboard used either as a sideboard or with a raised bookshelf on top. Ooh, bookshelf. But the meaning from this novel is a tall chest of drawers. So I'll try to find a picture of the British chiffonier and the North American chiffonier. Somewhere in the story, somebody says that they don't want to put up with any "Who Shot John?" Who shot John? This is a Texarkana expression from what I could find. And there's a On Language column in the New York Times, which I will put a link to as well. A "Who Shot John" is a long, rambling explanation. It's a very interesting phrase. So this was a William Safire column from 1986. So it's inherently dismissive, Safire says. The idea being is nobody really cares who shot John, so don't give me a long, rambling explanation. It was a favorite expression of Richard Milhous Nixon. The earliest citations are British, around 1860. There's a reference in a file of the British Royal Military Academies where men sat around playing Who Shot John. John was a slang term for a student in British military schools. Safire argues that, like it is in the Jones novel, it should be hyphenated. I'll try not to do any Who Shot Johns in this video, okay? Passel is an informal American term based on a mispronunciation of the word parcel. Passel. And it means, dating from the mid-19th century, a large group of people or things. I was intrigued to see in this book someone fund somebody. In the novel, it is probably easy to guess. It means to joke or to tease someone. To joke with or tease someone. Fun is an interesting word. Staunch grammar snobs don't accept using fun as an adjective. It should only be a noun. I had fun. Even some of my colleagues in the past in ESL said you should never teach your students to use fun as "it was fun." That's just wrong, and that's just stupid. But anyway, words change, people. Get over it. But someone fund somebody. A picayune. I've seen it in the name of several American newspapers, but I didn't know any more than that. It dates from 1804. It just means something of small value, so I don't know why it's in the name of so many newspapers in America. And it comes from a French word that means a coin of small value. The figurative sense dates from around 1813. So those are what I had from that. I also recently read a book of short stories by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, The Thing Around Your Neck. I've just got one word from that, and it was a word that I was vaguely aware of, the meaning, but thought it would be a good chance to find out exactly why it means what it means. Toadying, to toady, which means to act in an obsequious way. So let's talk about obsequious, because that's a word that I often have to look up because it's not common. It's just to be overly deferential, overly compliant, obedient, dutiful, obsequious. To toady means to do that. And the origin of toady, apparently from the early 19th century, and it's said to be, and this is in British English, I'm pretty sure, a contraction of toad eater, a charlatan's assistant who ate toads. And the charlatan, this is the original meaning of charlatan. Let's put charlatan up here for a minute. It's a medical quack or somebody who pretends to be an expert in something that they're not. And the original French meaning of charlatan is a seller of medicines who might advertise his presence with music and an outdoor stage show. So apparently there may have been bona fide charlatans that weren't actually charlatans, but the toad eater was the assistant of the charlatan who would, this is amazing actually, who would eat the toads. Toads were thought to be poisonous, and if the assistant survived, it meant the remedy would work.
Hey, I noticed during the editing process I didn't explain it fully. So the toady, the charlatan's assistant, would eat the poisonous toad, and then the charlatan would demonstrate the efficacy of their remedy by expelling the poison, curing the poisoning of his assistant.
So that is an obsequious assistant indeed. Wonderful. The next several pieces of vocabulary come from Ali Smith's novel Winter, which I recently read. I'm excited that spring is almost here, literally and literarily, but I finally read Winter, and lots of good stuff in here, a lot of it relating to winter. The first one, and again, I've heard it, I think I had a vague idea of what it meant, is frisson. It comes from French, and in French it means a shiver or a thrill, and it's been used in English since around the late 18th century to mean basically the same thing. A sudden strong feeling of excitement or fear, a thrill. In this novel, one of the main characters, his Twitter account is taken over by his ex-girlfriend, and she attempts to destroy his career. He is a nature columnist or something like that, and she takes over his Twitter account and starts sending out really rude tweets. And in that context, the mention is made of an animal spoor, which I didn't know, and that is basically tracks or scents of animals, and it could be in the snow, but it could be in the ground. It comes to us through Old English, but dating back to Dutch spoor, used in English since the early 19th century. And then the protagonist has been collecting little known winter words or snow words. So I've got a few of those in a row. Blenky means to snow very lightly. Not used. Have you ever heard it? Blenky. It's a verb. To blenky. It's blenkying. Not common. Probably comes from the word blanks, which is an earlier 18th century word for ashes or cinders. So how they got from ashes to snow, I'm not sure, but that's all I could find out about blenky. Sposh was a confusing one too, because sposh is soft, slushy mud or snow, and they think it's a blend of slush and posh, but I can't understand how posh fits into slush at all. So that doesn't make any sense to me, and I couldn't find anything more than that. Can someone help me? Sposh, slushy mud or slushy snow. Say that 5 times fast. And then I just have to inform you all that Ms. Smith misspelt the next word, penitents. Here's how she spelt it. The correct spelling is this, with an E before the final S. And it is snow formations at high altitudes, I found out. These formations, I'll put up some pictures here, they take the form of long, thin blades of hardened snow or ice, closely spaced and pointing towards the general direction of the sun. The name comes from the resemblance of a field of these, penitents, to a crowd of kneeling people doing penance. That's amazing. The formation evokes the tall, pointed habits and hoods worn by brothers of religious orders. When his ex-girlfriend is trying to destroy him by hijacking his Twitter account, she offers his followers, most of whom are following him because of his nature writing, she's offering on his behalf free snow jobs. And he goes to Google to find out, is snow job a sexual meaning? And I found a couple meanings that are very slang meanings, but in those fairly disreputable sites, slang dictionary sites. So I don't know how much, I mean, if it's on the internet, it must be true. So I'm going to tell you the two sexual meanings. I will raise my hand when I start talking in a vulgar way, because you can just fast forward it until my hand goes down. All right? Most of you I know will just want to get popcorn and watch the show, but here goes. So the first sexual meaning that I found was titty fucking, where the woman squeezes out breast milk while he's having his orgasm. Snow job. The other one is a woman, I guess it doesn't have to be a woman. I know it doesn't have to be a woman, although I have never done this. Snorting cocaine off an erect penis. Snow job. All right, so that's what I found out, but he found references to a G.I. Joe doll, and you can look that up, but that wasn't interesting. But the real meaning of snow job, which is not the meaning she was intending by way of being rude to him and trying to destroy him, was an attempt to deceive or persuade somebody by using flattery or exaggeration, insincerity. And that's a slang expression originating in the military during World War II, and it probably alludes to the idiom of snow under. And being snowed under means to be overwhelmed, overpowered, usually snowed under with work. So here, a snow job is when you're snowed under with flattery or exaggeration or insincerity. But that's not the meaning that his ex-girlfriend was vindictively trying to spread on Twitter. Whew. I need a cigarette. How about you? The last one from Ali Smith's Winter is bane. And I know the phrase, bane of one's existence, but I just thought, why do we say that? What's it all about? The man is talking to another woman, who's a wonderful character in this novel, about his ex-girlfriend, Charlotte, and he describes Charlotte, the ex-girlfriend, as the bane of my life. Now, the phrase that we all know is bane of my existence. So, a bane is a person or thing that ruins or spoils something. Gambling was the bane of his existence. Charlotte was the bane of this man's life or existence. Another meaning of it is a deadly poison, so that fits. There are poisonous plants called wolfsbane and henbane, but the etymological path goes back to words that mean death, destruction, or ruin. The Old English word bana was a killer, slayer, murderer, a worker of death, or the devil. And going through to Proto-Germanic, little detour in Old Frisian, Old Norse, Old High German, all of those words meaning something which causes death. The figurative meaning with which we use it dates from around the 1570s, so now we know. And the final three words or phrases come from this Irish novel, When All Is Said by Anne Griffin. This didn't end up being a novel that I enjoyed, so I bailed, but before I bailed, I found some interesting vocabulary. Some of my Irish subscribers, fellow booktubers, can maybe give comments as to how prevalent these words are in Irish English. I didn't find anything about them that suggested they were anything other than British English words, but maybe they have a particular Irish English flavor. The first one is an idiom, again, that I knew very well, but I just, again, was curious. Why do we say that? To put someone through the paces. I usually say put somebody through his paces or her paces, but it means to test the ability or skill of a person or thing. Now, it comes from horses, horse training. I never knew that. So, there's trotters and pacers. A trotter moves its legs diagonally, right front and left hind, then left front and right hind, striking the ground simultaneously. That's very interesting. A pacer moves its legs laterally, right front and right hind, then left front and left hind, striking the ground simultaneously. Wow! Okay. So the natural gaits of horses includes the trot, the walk, the canter, and the gallop. But other gaits in which some horses are trained are the pace, the rack, and the foxtrot. And so when you're buying a horse, you want to put it through its paces, which means to ride it at the walk, trot, canter, and gallop, and the rack and the pace if it's being advised as a fancy gaited horse. So what I'm getting from that is that those other gaits, the pace, the rack, and the foxtrot, are the fancy gaits. But you want to check that the horse can do all of the gaits that you want the horse to do, and that's come to be called putting a horse through its paces, and it now has taken these figurative meanings. The phrase, as applied to horses, dates from the late 1700s, and its figurative use was first recorded in 1871. So there we go. That research put me through my paces. Hunker. The protagonist, I think, is talking about maybe his brother or his uncle, I'm not sure, and he says he'd come back then and hunker beside me, and I didn't know hunker in this sense, and it means to squat on one's heels, often as the phrasal verb hunker down. Now I know the figurative meaning of hunker down, which is to hold resolutely or stubbornly to a policy or opinion when confronted by criticism, opposition. Double down, hunker down. But hunkers, the noun hunkers, means one's haunches. So to squat on one's haunches or to squat on one's heels, that's what hunker down means. There's an idiomatic meaning in British English, to be on one's hunkers, which is to suffer a period of poverty, bad luck, etc. And the last one is to make a hames of something. I had never heard of this. And it's an informal phrase which means to do something very badly or ineptly, to make a mess of something, to make a hames of something. It comes from Middle English, originally Middle Dutch. Have I pronounced hames correctly?
Hames.
Okay. And according to a website, Worldwide Words, it is a very Irish phrase. The dictionaries didn't identify it thus, but apparently it is. And this also comes from working horses. The hames are the two curved supports attached to the collar of a draft horse, to which the traces are fastened. It's very easy to put the hames on a horse the wrong way up, thus making a complete mess of things and risking adverse comments from bystanders. Hame, with various spellings, was once common in dialects throughout Britain and Ireland, and there are terms in Old Dutch and German that are similar. Probably came to us as a Germanic word imported from Dutch. So I will put a picture of the hames up, and apparently it's very easy to get that upside down, and that's to make a hames of something. Very interesting. Alright, so that's what I got. I hope I didn't make a hames of this batch of In Other Words, and I am looking forward to your comments below. Often the most erudite part of this whole process is your comments below, so please help me out. Thanks for watching.